The basement door slammed shut above us, the lock clicking like a gunshot in the stillness. I turned to my husband in the dark, heart pounding, ready to scream our son's name, but he pressed a trembling finger to my lips and whispered, "Quiet. I have a secret." We'd lived in the same gray clapboard house for 23 years, on a quiet cul-de-sac where the maple trees lean over the street like tired old men. Mark and I had raised Ethan here, watched him grow from a silent, watchful boy into a silent, watchful man who still slept in the same bedroom under the eaves. Nothing ever changed, until the night our own son herded us down the basement stairs, with a look in his eyes I didn't recognize, and the life we thought we understood cracked open like thin ice. The basement door shut above us with the softest thud, not slammed, not angry, just final. Then the lock turned slow, like someone tasting the sound for the first time. I stood on the bottom step, one hand still on the railing. The wood was cold, wet almost. Mark was one step behind me, breathing through his mouth the way he does when he's trying not to be heard. We didn't move, couldn't. Upstairs, Ethan's bare feet crossed the kitchen floor, left to right, then back again. Each footstep sent a little shower of dust down through the cracks between the boards. It drifted through the air like gray snow and settled on my shoulders. The bulb overhead gave one tired flicker, then nothing, just the low red eye of the furnace pilot light, watching us from the corner. I turned to Mark in the dark. My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. "Mark." He didn't answer. "Mark, what just happened?" His hand found my wrist, fingers tight, tighter than he'd ever held me. Even the night the miscarriage took everything. He squeezed until the bones pressed together. A warning, a plea. Upstairs, a chair scraped. Then another, slow, deliberate. The sound of someone building a wall out of ordinary things. I tried again, whispering now, frantic. "Did we fight? Did I say something? Mark, talk to me." He pulled me down the last step. My heels hit concrete. Cold shot up through my socks. The air down here always smelled of damp newspapers and the lilac sachets I kept forgetting to replace. Another chair, heavier this time. The table maybe. He was sealing us in. I felt the panic rise, thin and sharp, like steam. "Mark?" He locked us in. Our son locked us in the basement. The words sounded ridiculous the moment they left my mouth, like something from someone else's life. Mark let go of my wrist, but only to cup both hands around my face. His palms were freezing. His thumbs rested against my cheeks the way they did when Ethan was little and burning up with fever. Only this time his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Ellen," he said, his voice cracked on the second syllable, like an old cassette tape someone had played too many times. "Listen to me." I waited. The furnace clicked, thinking about coming on. It never did. Upstairs, silence now. And no more footsteps, just the house holding its breath. Mark's thumbs moved, barely, brushing the skin under my eyes. "There's something you never knew about him." A pause long enough to drown in. "About us." I stared at the place where his face should be. The red glow painted him in bruises. He looked suddenly old, older than the 23 years we'd spent in this house. "What do you mean, us?" My throat hurt. I realized I'd been holding the scream inside so long it had turned into a stone. He let his hands drop. They hung at his sides like they belonged to someone else. "I need you to be quiet a little longer," he whispered. "Just until I figure out how to tell you." Dust kept falling. Soft, relentless, every grain a tiny witness. I looked up at the ceiling. The dark knots in the pine boards we'd painted white the summer Ethan was 9. I could still see the faint handprints near the light switch, little ghost prints in almond gloss that never quite washed away. "Mark," my voice cracked the same way his had. "He's our son." He didn't answer. He only reached for me again, slower this time, and pulled me against his chest. His heartbeat was too fast, or maybe that was mine. Above us, one last sound, the soft click of the kitchen light switching off. Then nothing, just the furnace breathing, and the red glow, and the two of us standing in the place where we stored Christmas ornaments and broken lawn chairs and all the years we thought we understood. I closed my eyes, pressed my face into Mark's shirt that smelled of coffee and the cold night air still clinging to the fibers. And I waited for whatever came after the secret he hadn't told me yet, because some doors, once locked, don't open again for a very long time, and some truths wait in the dark until the house itself decides you're ready to hear them. The dark had weight after a while. It pressed on my shoulders like wet wool. I sat on the bottom step with my knees drawn up, listening to the furnace breathe in and out, The way Mark used to breathe when he carried Ethan in from the car, asleep at 2 in the morning. Hours had slipped by. I couldn't tell how many. The little window wells were still black dot and no birds yet, just the slow drip from the pipe behind the water heater. Counting time I didn't want. Mark sat against the wall, phone in his lap, thumb resting on the screen so it wouldn't sleep. The glow lit the hollows under his eyes. He hadn't looked at me once since he said there was something I never knew. I needed to move, needed to do something with my hands before they started shaking again. So I stood. The concrete sucked the heat from my feet through the socks. I walked the length of the basement, slow, trailing my fingers along the old shelves, past the boxes labeled in my own handwriting. Christmas 2008, Ethan Elementary School, taxes 9804. Under the stairs there was a corner I always skipped. Too many cobwebs, too many things we never threw away. Tonight my hand found something hard wedged between two stacks of plastic bins, cold metal, a handle. I pulled. It resisted, then gave with a scrape that sounded too loud. An old ammunition box, army green, the paint flaking like dead skin. I had never seen it before, not once, not in 23 years of sweeping this floor on my knees every spring. Mark's head lifted. The phone light caught the side of his face. He looked like a man watching a train he already knew was going to crash. I carried the box to the middle of the floor, set it down between us like it was something alive. The latch was stiff with rust. I had to work it with both thumbs. It opened with a sigh that smelled of paper and old pennies. Inside, things wrapped in a yellowed towel. I unfolded it slow, 2 tiny hospital bracelets, the plastic cracked, the names too small to read in the dim. Then a single sheet of construction paper, folded in half, crayon drawing, a house with a red roof, flames coming out the windows, 3 stick figures outside holding hands. One figure had no face, just a black circle where the head should be. My breath stopped. I set it aside like it might burn me. Underneath lay a photograph, the kind from the drugstore days, white border, date stamped in the corner, 11/17/1999. A little boy, maybe 4 years old, sitting on a pumpkin in a patch of dead vines, dark hair falling in his eyes, the same half smile Ethan wore in every school picture until he stopped smiling altogether. But Ethan was born in 2002. I knew the date the way I knew my own name. I was there. My hands started to shake so badly the photo blurred. I turned it over. On the back, in Mark's handwriting, in faded blue ink, Caleb, first Halloween without mom. I looked up. Mark was watching me now. The phone light trembled in his grip. He didn't speak. He only closed his eyes, slow, like curtains coming down. I held the picture toward him, couldn't find words, just held it in the air between us until my arm ached. He opened his eyes again. They were wet, not crying, just wet, like someone left outside in the rain too long. Mark, my voice cracked like thin ice. Who is Caleb? He looked at the drawing of the burning house. At the bracelets. At the photograph that should not exist. Then he looked at me, really looked, for the first time since the door locked. I was going to tell you, he said. So quietly I almost missed it over the drip of the pipe. I swear I was. The furnace kicked on. Warm air pushed across the floor, lifting the corner of the crayon drawing. The faceless stick figure fluttered, almost waved. I sat back on my heels. The concrete was so cold it burned. Somewhere above us, Ethan walked across the kitchen again. Once, twice, then stopped directly over our heads. The floorboards didn't creak this time. They just held still, listening. I looked at the little boy on the pumpkin. The date that came before everything I thought I knew, and I understood that some boxes stay hidden for a reason. But once you open them, the air changes, and there's no putting the dark back inside. Morning light slips through the narrow basement window wells in thin, trembling stripes, gold bars painted on cold cement, shifting whenever a cloud moves across the sky. I lie there for a moment, unsure if I'm awake or still drifting in that thick, half sleep where fear feels like a warm animal curled against the ribs. The air smells of old dust and last summer's paint cans, the kind no one ever remembers finishing. Somewhere above us, the house settles. A board contracts with a soft click, then another. For a breath, I imagine it's just a normal morning, that Ethan is upstairs pouring cereal, humming the way he did when he was small, when the world didn't sit so heavy on him. But the lock on the basement door remembers. It always remembers. I sit up slowly, feeling the stiffness in my neck from sleeping on concrete. Mark has already woken. He sits on the bottom stair, elbows on his knees, fingers tangled in his hair, like he's holding his thoughts in place. He hasn't spoken since dawn, only breathing through parted lips as if words might break something fragile in the air. I open my mouth to ask if he slept at all, but footsteps interrupt me, Ethan's soft at first, then steady. Each step descending the hallway overhead carries a weight I don't recognize, to calm, to even, like someone walking through a museum instead of their own home. My spine tightens. I hold my breath without meaning to. The basement door doesn't open. Instead, Ethan stops on the other side. I can hear him just on the other side, standing there, breathing, slow, deliberate, controlled, the kind of breathing people do when they're deciding something. Ethan? I call out, trying to hide the tremble in my voice. Honey, please, just talk to us. A long silence follows, soundless and heavy, like snow building on a roof. My hands shake in my lap. Ethan, I say louder, please unlock the door. Mark doesn't move. He just presses 2 fingers to his pulse and starts counting under his breath. Numbers barely audible, sharp, rhythmic, one after another. I stare at him. What are you doing? He doesn't answer me. He just keeps counting, like he's trying to measure something slipping away. The quiet stretches so taut it feels like it'll tear. Then Ethan exhales on the other side, just one long, steady breath, and his shadow moves under the door. His feet turn. He walks away. No words, no hesitation. The soft click of his footsteps fading down the hall might as well be the world shrinking. Something inside me cracks. I run to the steps and climb halfway up. My palms slam the underside of the locked door. Ethan, open this door. My voice breaks into sharp, useless pieces. I hit the wood again, harder, faster. Ethan, baby, please open it. Mark finally looks up, eyes red-rimmed from hours of not blinking enough. Stop, he whispers. You'll scare him. I whirl toward him. Scare him? He locked us down here. But Mark just closes his eyes, pressing his fingertips to his pulse again, counting like the numbers are the only things holding him upright. At first, I'm angry, furious that he's just sitting there, counting instead of screaming. But then I notice the way his shoulders shake, barely, like a man trying not to choke on something he doesn't dare say. He whispers, 33, 34, 35. His voice is almost tender, a kind of grief soaked so deep it's gone quiet. I kneel beside him on the steps. What are you counting, Mark? What is it? He swallows, Adam's apple bobbing like a small trapped bird. Heartbeats. He murmurs. I wait for him to explain. He doesn't. The room feels smaller suddenly. The air grows heavier. Even the golden bars of morning light seem thinner, like the sun is losing interest. Mark? I whisper. Why are you counting heartbeats? He doesn't look at me. His eyes stay fixed on the basement floor, on nothing at all. Because silence, he says softly, is how it starts. His voice cracks on the last word, barely, but I hear it. A chill moves through my spine. The kind that feels like a whisper. You're not supposed to hear. I sit beside him, our shoulders touching. He doesn't pull away, but he doesn't lean in either. He keeps counting, slower now, like he's measuring the space between things that are about to break. The house above us goes quiet again. Every creak, every sigh of the wood feels like it's listening rather than settling. I close my eyes. I don't understand, I say, trying to keep my breathing even. Why are you so afraid of the quiet? Mark finally lowers his hand from his pulse. His fingers rub together, restless, like he's remembering the shape of something he held once and dropped. When he was little, he says, Ethan used to stop talking right before he changed. His voice fades, but the echo of the word change stays suspended between us. I wait. He takes a trembling breath. His teachers said he'd go still, silent, like everything in him turned inward and locked the rest of the world out. They said it was just temperament, but I saw it in his eyes. Those quiet spells. He lifts his shaking hands. They were storms gathering. My heartbeat kicks hard against my ribs. He hasn't had one in years, Mark whispers. I prayed they were gone. The golden light fades into pale silver as a cloud drifts over the sun. The basement grows colder. For a moment, I can almost feel Ethan's breath through the door again. Slow, controlled, deciding something. Mark runs a hand over his face. If he's gone quiet again, it means something's wrong inside him. Something he's holding tight. Something he's afraid to say. I stare up at the basement door, the paint around the knob worn down by decades of small hands and bigger ones. What happens, I ask softly, when he breaks the silence? Mark's voice lowers to a whisper, barely there. That's what scares me. We sit there together, listening to the house breathe above us breaths that don't belong to us anymore, and in the stillness, I feel it too. Silence isn't safety, it's warning, the kind that comes before a storm. The basement feels colder by the hour, the kind of cold that crawls up from the concrete and settles in the bones. My fingers ache as I run them along the back wall, searching for anything we might use to free ourselves, anything Ethan didn't think to hide. The light from the small window wells barely reaches the far corners, turning boxes and old furniture into soft, shapeless shadows. Mark sits on the stair behind me, hands clasped loosely, eyes unfocused. He hasn't spoken since he warned me about the silence. His breaths are shallow, uneven, like each one carries a weight he never meant to hold. I duck behind the water heater, brushing away cobwebs. Something metal shifts beneath my palm, a faint hollow echo, half lost in the dark. I press again. A small panel trembles, barely clinging to its screws. Rust flakes off like old snow. I wedge my nails underneath and pull. The panel gives way with a groan. Something spills out, thin shapes sliding across the floor. Whisper soft. Letters, dozens of them, all bundled loosely with brittle twine. All addressed to me in Mark's handwriting. Some edges browned by time, some ink fading, some corners chewed as if years had passed without a single hand touching them. My breath catches. Mark? He doesn't answer. I gather the letters into my lap. The dates on the envelopes climb backward: last year, 3 years, 8 years, 15 years. My heart thuds unevenly. These aren't drafts. These were meant to be sent, but he never mailed a single one. My throat tightens as I tear the twine free and choose one at random. The phone battery flickers its last weak glow across the page as I unfold it. The handwriting is small, careful, the way he writes when he's ashamed. Ellen, I need you to know what happened that night. The night I said I was working late. I wasn't late. I was drunk. He trusted me. I should have never taken that road. I stop breathing. The phone dims again. I shake it awake and keep reading. The crash wasn't meant to happen. He hit his head. He wouldn't wake up. I panicked. I didn't call anyone. I told myself he was just asleep, that he'd open his eyes when morning came. I lied to myself because the truth would destroy us. I left him on the side of the road. I left him alone. God, Ellen, I left him alone. My throat closes. I can barely swallow the next breath. He left someone behind, a child, a living child. My vision blurs as I bring another letter close to the dying light, one dated just weeks after the first. I see him when I close my eyes. Some days I think he forgave me. Other days I feel like he's still out there waiting, wondering why I didn't come back. I will carry this weight until the earth takes me. The letters go on and on, regret building over years, layered like dust on forgotten shelves. But then, the dates suddenly stop. And no more letters after the year Ethan turned 8, the year our boy grew quiet, the year Mark began waking in the night, trembling, the year a police officer visited our home with a question about a hit and run from long ago, a case closed, but not forgotten. I clutch the stack of letters against my chest. Mark, I say again. But this time my voice breaks apart. He lifts his head slowly, as if surfacing from deep water. His eyes look hollow, haunted, older than they should. Why? I whisper. He tries to speak, but his jaw locks. His fingers curl into his palms. It takes him several breaths before he can form the words. I wrote them, he says softly, because I didn't know how to tell you. Tell me what? My voice rises despite how hard I try to steady it. That you left a child on the side of the road? That you hid it from me for 15 years? His face crumples like wet paper. Ellen, I tried to make it right. I tried to find him. The basement feels too small suddenly, air thinning around us. You never told me, I say. All these years and you never told me. I couldn't, he whispers. I didn't know how. And then everything changed. I shake my head. What changed, Mark? He looks at me, really looks at me for the first time since our son locked us down here. His eyes shine under the dim light, raw with the truth. He's held too long. The boy's name, he whispers, was Caleb. The word drifts into the room like a cold draft. Who is Caleb? I ask, though somewhere deep inside, a terrible guess has already begun knitting itself together. Mark swallows hard. He was 8, he says. Just 8. Brown hair, a little crooked tooth, always carrying a toy truck in his pocket. He looked so much like. He stops himself. The silence after his breath is sharp enough to bleed on. Like who? I whisper. His answer is so soft I almost miss it. like Ethan, the world tilts. My skin goes cold. A sensation like falling settles low in my stomach. What are you saying? My voice trembles. Mark, what are you saying? He closes his eyes, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. I'm saying, he whispers, that the boy I left, the boy I prayed for every night, might not have died on that road. A crack races through my chest. He might still be out there, Mark continues faintly. And he might have found us long before we realized. A sudden noise vibrates through the ceiling, something shifting. Upstairs, slow, careful, deliberate. The way Ethan walked earlier. We both look up at the wooden beams. A shadow moves across the thin sliver of light at the base of the door. Mark's breath catches. Ellen, he whispers, listen. We don't move. The house is silent again. But not empty. Not anymore. Something about the quiet feels heavier now. Watching, waiting, and somewhere inside that silence, the name Mark spoke curls into my thoughts like smoke. Caleb, the child he abandoned, the child who disappeared, the child whose file police once said was never fully closed, the child who would be 23 now, the same age Ethan is. My pulse thunders in my ears. I reach for Mark's hand, gripping it tight, because suddenly, the question that fills the cold basement isn't just who was Caleb. It's who did we bring into our home? The storm arrives first as a distant hum, the kind that seems to gather itself far beyond the tree line before spilling toward the house. I hear it long before it breaks, the soft grumble of thunder, the roll of sky shifting its weight. Down here, in the basement's dim half-light, the weather feels amplified, as if every raindrop is landing directly on my skin. A cold draft leaks through the small window wells. Then water begins its slow creep across the concrete floor, thin as a thread at first, carrying the scent of wet leaves and old soil. It gathers around the edges of the room, pooling where the floor dips. I watch it, unable to move for a moment. Rain always brings a memory with it. The night Ethan was born. A night soaked in fear and hope, and something I didn't have words for then. I was alone in the hospital bed, contractions tearing through me, fluorescent lights buzzing like bees. Mark burst into the room an hour after the pain started, soaked to the skin, hair plastered to his forehead, shaking. He'd said the car broke down miles away. I had believed him, back then. I didn't look too closely at the details, the mud on his sleeves, the tremor in his hands, the way he stared at the hospital crib as if expecting it to accuse him of something. I chalked it up to nerves, to first-time father panic, to a stormy night and bad roads. But now the thunder sounds like a warning, and the rain feels like fingers tapping on a coffin lid. Mark is slumped against the far wall, knees drawn up. His breathing is shallow, chest rising only slightly with each inhale. The letters from the hidden panel lie scattered around us like wilted leaves. All the years he carried secrets folded in small, careful squares. Outside, the thunder cracks again, this time right above us, rattling the light fixture. Ellen, Mark says quietly. T first. I don't answer. The storm is so loud now it drowns half of what he says. But when I turn toward him, I see something in his eyes I haven't seen in years. Not guilt, not dread, but anticipation. As if he knows another truth is trying to climb out of him. He swallows hard, wipes his palms on his jeans. That night, he begins, but the words stick. He tries again. That night I told you the car broke down. His voice is hoarse, fragile. I pull my knees to my chest and wait. Mark shifts, staring at the letters as if they might help him speak. I should have told you long before this, he murmurs. But I kept thinking I'd find the right moment. A way to say it without breaking you. The truth doesn't break people, Mark, I say softly. Secrets do. He winces. The rain intensifies, slamming against the small windows until water runs in narrow rivers down the inside of the glass. The storm presses its forehead to the house, listening. I didn't take the highway, he finally says. A slow chill runs across my spine. What do you mean? He rubs his face with both hands. I took a back road. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have been driving at all. I sit very still. Every muscle in my body goes quiet. A wrong turn, he continues, breathing unevenly. I thought it would be faster, but I was tired. I kept drifting. I didn't see the ditch until the headlights hit it. He looks at me, eyes hollow. There were other headlights, he whispers. The basement tilts. A flash of lightning floods the room white. Merciless. Mark, I say, my voice barely there. What are you telling me? He presses his fingers against his temples, as if trying to hold his head together. There was a car, he says. Small, older, parked strange, half on the road, half off. Like whoever was in it had tried to pull over too fast. My heart thuds painfully in my ribs. The door was open, he says. Just hanging there. The rain outside grows harder, faster, a frantic drumming, and on the yellow line, his voice cracks. There was a shoe. My stomach twists. The air in the basement becomes thin, hard to swallow. A child's shoe, he says. Red, with a little white star on the side. I can still see it. I feel myself sway, even seated, lightning again. Thunder behind it, violent. I got out, Mark continues, shaking now. I called out. I looked around. But the storm, it was so loud. I couldn't hear anything but rain. And then, he closes his eyes, and then I heard him. The room seems to shrink around us. A cry, Mark whispers. Very faint. Like he didn't have any breath left. My hands go cold. I found him in the back seat, Mark says. Wrapped in a blanket. Blue lips, barely moving. No parents around. No one. Just him. The floor seems to pitch under me. I panicked, Mark says, voice breaking. I thought someone else would come back. I thought maybe the mother was calling for help. But I couldn't see anyone. What did you do? I whisper. He looks at me with devastation carved into every line of his face. I picked him up, he says. I put him in our car. And I drove. I drove to you. To the hospital. I told myself it was the only way to save him. I don't breathe. But when the doctor took him from me, Mark says, he didn't question anything. He just assumed he was ours. The storm outside howls. My heartbeat is a violent thing. Mark, I choke out. Are you saying? He bows his head, unable to look at me. The baby you brought home, he whispers, might not have been ours at all. The sound that leaves my mouth is small. More air than voice. I see it now. The fear in his eyes that night, the shaking, the mud on his sleeves, the way he held the baby, like something fragile and borrowed. A flash of white lightning turns the basement bright as daylight, then plunges it back into shadow. I feel the edges of my world shift. Unsteady. Mark, I whisper, trembling. Where was our child? His shoulders collapse inward. I don't know, he says. I never found out. The words slice through the storm. The rain beats against the windows like frantic knuckles begging to be let in. I stare at the rising water on the basement floor. And the truth gathers slowly, painfully. If the baby I raised wasn't mine, then whose child did I love for 23 years? And where is the child I never got to hold? Night comes again like a slow curtain being pulled across the sky, leaving only the faintest bruise of blue at the edges. Down here, where the basement swallows sound, time feels thinner, stretched between breaths. Mark is asleep, if you can call the shallow rise of his chest, sleep curled near the steps, one hand twitching now and then as if he's clutching something in a dream. I can't settle. The storm has passed, but the air still tastes metallic, charged, like the world is holding its breath for whatever comes next. The phone battery is dying, but I keep it on, needing the small circle of light it gives. The shadows feel too alive without it. That's when I see the old mirror. It's leaning against the far wall, half covered by a sheet of peeling wallpaper, the frame chipped and water-stained. We stored it down here years ago when Ethan got older and refused to sleep in any room where mirrors faced the bed. I remember laughing then, thinking it was childish superstition. Now I wish I hadn't laughed at all. I lift the mirror slowly, dust rising in soft, ghostly breaths. The glass is fogged, but beneath the smudge, my reflection stares back, tired eyes, hair in loose damp strands, shoulders hunched like I'm bracing for impact. I hold the phone up, letting the light spill over us. For a long moment, it's just me. Then Mark appears behind me. He moves quietly, like he's not sure he belongs in his own body. His reflection is pale, almost blurred at the edges. I don't turn around yet. Somehow it feels safer to look at him in glass, where I can pretend distance exists between us. But his gaze isn't on me. He's looking past my shoulder, over my reflection's right side, into the dim corner beyond the water heater where the shadows have thickened. I whisper his name. My breath fogs the glass. He doesn't answer. Instead, his jaw tightens. His lips part, but he seems afraid to let the sound out. His eyes track something slowly, deliberately, as if someone else is moving in the dark behind me. I feel the muscles in my back pull tight. There is nothing there, at least. Nothing I can see. Mark leans closer into the mirror more than toward me, his reflection merging with mine for a heartbeat. Then he finally speaks, barely audible, voice trembling as if the words cut on their way out. He knows, he whispers. He knows we know. The phone light flickers in my hand. A cold ripple crawls up my spine, prickling the skin at the base of my neck. I force myself to turn not all the way, just enough to look at Mark directly. His real eyes mirror the fear in the glass. Before I can ask what he means, the furnace kicks on. It's old. Older than our marriage. Older than Ethan. Older than the letters hidden in the walls. When it starts, it usually groans or thumps, the sound of metal waking up. But tonight it comes alive with a hollow boom that echoes through the basement. So suddenly my breath catches, and underneath that boom faint, warped by pipes and ducts comes a sound that freezes every part of me. It sounds like a child laughing, a thin, breathy giggle, weaving through the metallic rumble, lingering for the briefest moment before fading into the clatter of the furnace. Adjusting to heat, I spin toward the sound. Phone light jerks across the walls, catching the outlines of boxes, the drip of water, the curve of the furnace door. Nothing. No movement, no shape, no child, but the laughter. I heard it. I know what I heard. The phone shakes in my hand. The light drifts upward, dancing across the ceiling beams, the dusty pipes, the dark corners where shadows cling as if afraid of being found. When I turn back to Mark, he's already staring at me, breathing too fast, eyes wide. You heard it too, I whisper. He doesn't nod. He doesn't speak. He simply presses a shaking finger to his lips, signaling silence, absolute silence, like the wrong breath could summon something neither of us is ready to face. The basement is still again. Too still. I force myself to take a step toward him. The water on the floor shifts under my shoe, sending ripples that catch the dying light, glimmering like veins. What does he think we've discovered? I finally manage. Mark's face crumples, as if he's been waiting for me to ask that question but dreading the answer. He sits heavily on a crate, elbows on his knees, hands covering the back of his neck. Ellen, he says, voice raw, he's been watching us. More than we realized. I kneel in front of him, every inch of me shaking. Watching for what? Mark closes his eyes. For the truth, he whispers. The air feels colder suddenly, as if someone opened a window I can't see. The basement lights flicker once, then again. Shadows stealing across the walls like they're searching for a place to hide. Behind us, the mirror cracks softly, a thin line appearing down the middle, splitting our reflections apart. I feel it then, like a presence settling just beyond the reach of the light. Not visible, not concrete, but undeniable. A weight, a knowing, a breath in the dark. Mark looks toward the mirror, toward the corner behind me, toward whatever he saw reflected there moments ago. His voice is barely audible when he speaks. He thinks we've figured out what he really is. My heart stops for a beat. Outside, thunder rolls again, far off this time, but steady, like footsteps approaching from miles away. I turn fully toward the corner, still nothing, and yet, the laughter lingers, not in the air, not in the pipes. In my memory, or maybe in something else entirely. Mark reaches for my hand, gripping it so tightly the bones in my fingers ache. That wasn't the furnace, he whispers. The phone light flickers one last time. Then the battery dies. The basement falls into darkness so complete it feels alive, and somewhere in that darkness, something breathes. Morning comes in thin, colorless strips through the basement vent, the kind of light that feels too fragile to touch. It paints a pale square on the cement floor, drifting slowly as the sun rises somewhere above us. In the world we no longer seem to belong to, I sit with my back against the washing machine, the cold humming through my spine. Mark stands a few feet away, staring up at the vent like he's listening for a ghost. The basement smells like damp cement and old copper pipes, a scent I've known all my married life, but today it feels colder, heavier, almost metallic. Then I hear it. The soft scrape of metal against metal. Something slides across the vent grate, a key, but not dropped. Lowered. It hangs from a piece of twine, swaying slightly, catching the weak light. My breath catches in my throat. Above us, I can hear Ethan's footsteps slow, deliberate, the rhythm of someone who knows exactly the effect he's having. Mark doesn't move. He's frozen, like he's waiting for confirmation of a truth he hoped would stay buried. The twine drops lower until the key is almost within my reach. Instinct makes me stand, hands stretching toward it, the way a mother reaches for anything her child might be holding out. but just as my fingertips brush the air beneath it, Ethan yanks it back up. The twine snaps upward so suddenly the vent rattles. I stumble a little. My heart stumbles even more. The key reappears a moment later, lowered slowly again, tauntingly. A cruel pendulum marking the seconds we've been trapped here. Ethan? I call up. My voice cracks on the name. Honey, please. Just talk to us. He doesn't answer. Only the key moves, swaying like a tired metronome. I step toward it again. Mark's hand closes around my wrist tight. Urgent, almost panicked. Don't, he whispers. His voice is nothing like the man I married. It's thin, trembling, worn down by nights he never told me about. What do you mean don't? I hiss. It's a key, Mark. He's giving it to us. Mark's eyes flick upward, watching the twine slide a little, turning the key in a slow circle. He's not giving it, he says quietly. He's showing it. The words settle in my stomach like stones. Ethan lowers the key again. It dangles eye level now, spinning slowly. The metal is old, scratched, with flecks of rust near the teeth. Not our house key. Not any key I've ever seen. My skin prickles. Mark pulls me back again. Ellen, think. That's not the key to this door. I open my mouth to argue, but the truth lands before I can speak. The basement door lock isn't metal. It's electronic. Ethan changed it months ago when he updated the security. This key belongs to something older, something forgotten. My voice drops to a whisper. Then what is it? Mark swallows hard. His gaze drifts toward the far wall, the one behind the shelves, where we shoved old tools and boxes we didn't want to deal with. His face goes pale. It's for the chute, he says. I frown. What chute? He closes his eyes like he's bracing for impact. The old coal chute, behind the house. The one my father welded shut when I was a boy. A memory stirs faint, dusty. A rusted metal door, half buried in ivy. A padlock so corroded it looked fused to the hinge. A place Mark always told Ethan never to go near. I always assumed it was just unsafe. Ethan lowers the key again. This time he lets it hang longer, almost kindly. I reach again despite myself. He yanks it back so violently it hits the grate with a sharp, metallic snap. I flinch. Mark pulls me fully behind him. Ellen, he whispers. He wants us to look there. My mouth goes dry. Mark, what's in the chute? He hesitates a moment too long. Something, he says finally, that was never meant to be found. The words tilt the room. Air thins. The shadows seem to shift closer. You knew, I breathe. You knew there was something out there. He presses trembling fingers to his forehead. I didn't know what, only that it wasn't supposed to come back. And that if it ever did. He trails off, the key lowers again, slower than before, as if Ethan is growing impatient. The twine twists, scraping against the metal grate. I swear I can hear breathing above us. Not heavy, not angry, just steady, controlled. Watching, waiting. Mark's voice cracks. Ellen, he wants us to open it. I shake my head. Why? Why now? My mind flashes through memories. Ethan at 3, clinging to Mark's leg. Ethan at 10, staring out the window after midnight. Ethan last month, quiet, withdrawn, eyes too dark for a boy his age. What if he wants us to find something? I whisper. Mark looks at the floor. No, he wants us to remember something. The twine jerks again, impatient. Mark's voice drops to a terrified rasp. He thinks we already know. I stare at the vent. The key hangs lower this time. As if offered one final time, Ethan lowers it far enough to brush Mark's shoulder. Then he pulls it up again, slow, deliberate, a warning, a dare, a promise. The light flickers from the storm outside, shadows stretching along the walls like long fingers. Mark pulls me backward, both of us staring at the vent. At the key Ethan refuses to give, refuses to drop, refuses to explain. Something is buried out there, something old, something waiting. My chest tightens as the question settles into my bones like cold. Why does our son want us to find it now? Above us, the twine is pulled away. The key disappears. The vent goes quiet, but Ethan doesn't walk away. He stays, breathing, listening, waiting for us to understand. The night has a different weight just before dawn. The darkness feels thicker, like the house itself is holding its breath. Somewhere above us, the storm finally calms, leaving only the slow drip of water through the foundation and the hum of the furnace settling in its bones. Mark sits beside me on the cold floor, back against the support beam. His hands are limp in his lap, palms open, like he's surrendering to something he's been fighting for years. I can hear him breathing uneven, shallow, full of a dread that feels older than anything between us. He hasn't spoken since the key vanished from the vent. Not a word, not even my name, but when the dark outside begins thinning into that shy blue before sunrise, he finally lifts his head. Ellen, he whispers, almost too quietly to hear. I need you to listen. Something inside me tightens. I fold my arms as if that might shield me from whatever's coming. Mark stares into the middle distance, eyes distant, fixed on a place years away. I wasn't coming home from work the night Ethan was born, he says. I wasn't even headed toward the hospital. The words shift the air in the basement. A silent warning. He swallows hard. The storm that night, I could barely see the road. Wipers couldn't keep up. The headlights were useless. Everything was just rain and black. I close my eyes remembering that storm. Remembering, waiting for him, terrified, praying he hadn't lost his way or his nerve. He keeps talking, voice breaking in strange places. I took a wrong turn. Or maybe it wasn't wrong, maybe I was meant to find him. Find who? My voice comes out thin, sharp, afraid. Mark's jaw tightens. The boy. I freeze. He doesn't look at me, can't. I saw something in the ditch first. A backpack, torn open. Pages of a school book plastered to the pavement by the rain. And then, further up the road, a little boy, maybe 4, 5 years old, walking alone, barefoot, in a t-shirt. He was soaked through, shaking so hard I could see it from inside the truck. A small sound slips from my throat. Mark pushes on. I stopped. I called out. He didn't answer. He just kept walking, like he didn't know where he was or where he should be. When I ran to him, he collapsed in my arms. My thoughts move like cold syrup, slow, heavy. He had a cut on his head, Mark says. A bad one. And he kept whispering a name, over and over. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. My breath catches. I can't tell if it's fear or understanding. I thought maybe Caleb was his brother, Mark says softly, or his father, or someone he was trying to find. He drags a hand through his hair, fingers shaking now. I lifted him into the truck, wrapped him in my coat, and I drove, fast as I could, right to the hospital. He finally looks at me, and the grief in his eyes is a wound I've never seen before. I didn't mean to lie, he says. I didn't plan any of it. The basement wall behind him seems to pull farther away as the truth creeps closer. When I got there, he continues, you were curled on the bed, holding your stomach, crying so hard I thought you were going to die. The nurses were whispering. The doctor wouldn't meet my eyes. And when they put that child, this soaked, terrified child in my arms and said he needed a guardian to sign papers, you looked at him. He stops, voice cracking. You looked at him like he was the miracle you'd been begging for. I shake my head slowly, dreamlike, as if the motion itself hurts. Mark, no, you reached for him, he whispers. You said, please don't let him go. Not this one. Not this time. My vision blurs. The basement tilts. They assumed, he says softly. Everyone assumed. They thought he was ours. And you needed him so badly. I couldn't take him away from you. I couldn't take you away from him either. My knees fold beneath me and I sink to the floor, hands trembling. Mark, whose child was he? Mark closes his eyes. His name was Caleb. The doctors found a second car in a ravine the next morning. His mother died on impact. No record of a father. No remaining family. No one to claim him. Silence swallows the room. Thick, absolute. And the accident? I whisper. The one you never told me details about. His eyes open, empty and full at the same time. The car I saw in the ditch. It was smoking. The headlights? They were still on. I couldn't get the door open. I tried. God, Ellen, I tried. A cold wave washes over me. Mark, are you saying? He shakes his head hard. I don't know. Maybe she had swerved. Maybe someone else hit them. The road was a mess. But I found her son walking alone. That much is true. We sit in suffocating stillness. And Ethan? I whisper. When did we stop calling him Caleb? The day after, Mark says. When the nurse asked his name, you were half asleep. You said Ethan, and he looked up at you like he recognized the sound. My hands pressed to my mouth. I can taste the salt of my own fear. We said we'd tell him later, Mark says, voice hollow. But later never came. And when he turned 8, the letters in the wall stop around then because he started changing, getting quieter, watching us. A breath slips from me like a small broken thing. He knows. Mark nods. He's always known. He waited for us to know it too. The faintest sound echoes above us, the whisper soft tread of footsteps in the hallway. Ethan's steps, slow, patient, almost listening. A chill crawls up my spine. What if, I say, barely breathing, the boy upstairs isn't punishing us for what we did? Mark's hand finds mine, cold and trembling. What if, I whisper, he's punishing us for the brother we never mourned? The sound is so small at first that I mistake it for the settling of the house. A soft metallic shift, a sigh of old hinges remembering movement. Then the lock clicks sharp, nearly polite, and the basement door swings inward as if nudged by a gentle hand. For a moment, neither of us moves. The air between us feels crowded with everything we've learned, everything we fear might still be waiting. Ethan stands in the doorway, the dim beam of a flashlight held under his chin. The angle paints his face in strange shapes, hollowing his cheeks, stretching shadows across his eyes. Like a child trying to scare his friends at a sleepover. Like a boy who learned long ago that ghosts aren't stories at all. He doesn't speak, he only looks at us. Expression perfectly still, as though he's waiting for something to settle inside him before he decides what to do. Mark rises first. Not with courage, not even with certainty, but with the heavy resignation of someone who knows there is no choice left. He reaches down, his hand, searching for mine in the dark. When I give it to him, his fingers close around mine, as if anchoring himself to a future he no longer trusts. Ethan steps aside, not welcoming, not forgiving, just stepping aside. We move past him, climbing the stairs, slow as old ghosts. Each step carries its own weight, its own memory. My shoulder brushes the doorframe and I flinch, as though the wood itself might remember how many times Ethan has stood on the other side of it, listening, calculating to the top of the stairs. The house meets us like nothing has changed. The kitchen lights are off, but the faint early morning gray seeps through the window, over the sink. The chairs are tucked neatly under the table. A dish towel is folded over the back of the chair I always sit in. The counter is clean. No overturned furniture, no abandoned plates, no signs of a child holding his parents prisoner in the night. A perfectly ordinary room. A room pretending. Mark leads me through it without a word. He doesn't look at the fridge covered in magnets and reminders. He doesn't look at the fruit bowl or the stack of unopened mail. He only walks with that stiff, heavy posture like he's bracing for a blow he knows he deserves. In the hallway, he stops. I almost bump into him before I realize why he's frozen. The family portrait hangs on the wall exactly where it always has, framed in cheap walnut. The three of us stand in a sunny studio, Mark with his awkward half smile, me with my arm wrapped around Ethan's thin shoulders, and Ethan, 9 years old, wearing the little navy sweater he loved so much. He is smiling in the picture, but the smile is wrong. I've looked at that portrait 1,000 times, never seeing it as I do now. The eyes are too distant, like they're watching something happening behind the camera rather than the person taking the photo. His hands clasped in front of him, are tense small fists pretending to be polite. Even the tilt of his head looks like a child being told, not asked, to hold still, a message frozen in time that we, in our comfort and denial, never learned how to read. Behind us, Ethan steps into the hallway. His presence shifts the air, quiet, steady, almost patient. He isn't threatening us. He isn't looming or glaring or wielding the flashlight like a weapon. He is simply waiting. His voice comes soft when it finally breaks the silence. Softer than I expect. Softer than it has any right to be after everything he's done. You're free to leave, he says. The words float in the dim hallway like dust caught in a sunbeam, weightless. Strange, untrustworthy. My breath snags. A quiet, instinctive protest rising in my chest. Leave? Go where? To what? The world outside this house feels like a place that belongs to other people without the weight of stolen sons or buried secrets pressing on their shoulders. Mark doesn't respond. He stands frozen beneath the portrait, staring at Ethan the way someone stares at a cliff. They know they're about to step off. Ethan tilts his head. The movement is small but deliberate. You're free, he repeats. But you won't leave. The certainty in his voice is chilling in its calm. Not a threat, not a challenge, just a fact he seems to believe with every bone in his body. I force my gaze from the portrait to my son, our son, borrowed son, stolen son, the boy we raised, the boy we lied to. The boy who has been living with a truth we refuse to see. What makes you so sure? I ask, though my voice barely carries. He looks at me then. Really? Looks. Into me. Through me. Past everything. I want to pretend I still deserve. Because this house is built on the truth you buried, he whispers. And now you've found it. People don't walk away from things like that. A tremor moves through me. He's right, in ways I don't want him to be. Mark finally turns toward Ethan. His voice, when it comes, sounds older than the man I married. Ethan, what do you want from us? Ethan doesn't blink. I want you to stop pretending. The furnace kicks on somewhere behind us with a hollow boom, a reminder of the house's old bones adjusting to the dawn. The sound makes me jump, but Ethan doesn't flinch. He stands there with the flashlight under his chin, glowing like the pale outline of a boy we never truly knew. You can walk out that door, he says softly, but everything outside it is the same lie you brought home the night I was born. He turns the flashlight off. The hallway plunges into the gray half-light of morning. I don't need to keep you here anymore, he murmurs in the dark. You'll keep yourselves. Something in me breaks open at those words, not pain, not guilt, not even fear, recognition, a truth so deep that it feels carved. He steps back into the shadows of the hallway, disappearing like someone fading from a photograph. Mark closes his eyes. I close mine, and in the silence he leaves behind, I understand why we won't leave. We aren't trapped by the basement, we're trapped by the truth. The stairs feel longer than they ever have, each step rising beneath me like a question I don't want answered. My hand drifts along the banister, but the wood doesn't steady me. It's as if my body knows something my mind is still fighting to understand. My legs carry me upward, but they feel borrowed, distant, as though I'm watching someone else climb into the quiet that waits above. Halfway up, I sense Mark behind me. Not close enough to touch, not far enough to lose. His breaths are uneven, carried like a man trying to swallow grief before it spills into the open. But grief has already seeped into the walls. It hums through the house like a second heartbeat. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretches narrow and dim, holding its breath. The morning light slips through the curtains in weak stripes, dust drifting in the beams like falling ash. Ethan's bedroom door stands open. That alone stops me. He never left it open. Not as a child. Not as a teenager. Not ever. I step toward it slowly, as if the air has thickened around the doorway. Mark stays in the hall, his shadow flickering against the wallpaper like some small frightened thing trying to be brave. I push the door open fully. The room hits me like a cold wind. Bare walls. Stripped bed. No posters. No books. No clothes draped over the chair. No loose socks tucked under the frame. The space looks as though someone lifted his life out by the edges and carried it away without leaving a single corner behind. There's a suitcase sitting by the window. Dark. Old. Packed. Waiting. For what? For whom? I step inside, my feet sinking into the carpet, but the softness feels wrong, like I'm trespassing somewhere I no longer belong. The air smells faintly of dust and something sharper, metal, maybe. Or the cold bite of winter air slipping in through a cracked window. Something on the dresser catches my eye. A piece of paper, a child's drawing. I walk toward it slowly, fingers trembling before I even reach it. The drawing is old, the crayon lines faint and smudged. A little boy's handwriting. A house drawn in shaky strokes. Flames rising from the roof in bright orange and red. A stick figure standing outside, one hand raised, mouth open. A fire, a memory, a warning. I swallow hard, feeling my throat tighten. I've never seen this drawing before. Not once in all these years. Not tucked in a drawer. Not hidden in a box. Not taped to a fridge by hands too small to know what fire really means. Beneath it, or maybe beside it, I can't tell because my eyes suddenly blur, is another sheet of paper. This one new. This one written in adult handwriting. Neat, steady, cold. Welcome home, Mom. My breath breaks, a soft, wounded thing. The words tilt the whole room, like I've stepped onto a floor that shifts beneath my feet. I reach out to touch the paper, but my hand hovers an inch above it, afraid of what it might mean if I make contact. Behind me, I hear a sound, a gasp. Or maybe a sob held too long. Mark stands in the hallway, leaning against the wall, his face ashen. His hand covers his mouth, but the grief still leaks out silent, shaking, devastating. He looks at the bare doorway as if he's seeing a grave. And in a way he is. Every photograph of Ethan, gone. The frames remain in the living room downstairs, empty, like open mouths waiting to be filled with stories that have nowhere left to go. I didn't notice at first, how could I? The terror of the night swallowed everything else. But now, standing here, I feel the absence, like missing light. He erased himself, completely, not with anger, not with violence, with intention, with purpose, with the precision of someone removing a stain. I turn back to the two drawings, and suddenly, I feel a weight in my chest I've never felt before. Not fear, not guilt, something older, something that tastes like a truth I've been pushing away for years without ever admitting I was doing it. Who drew the first picture? The burning house, the lone child. Was that Caleb's world? Was that the night Mark tried to bury under years of polite dinners and birthday cakes and Christmas cards? The night we renamed, reimagined, rebuilt a life around a child who wasn't meant to be here at all. Was this drawing a memory someone else carried, not the child I raised? My hands tremble as I pick up the second paper. Welcome home, Mom. Not I'm home. Not I'm leaving. Not why did you lie to me. Just welcome home. Like he's been living somewhere else entirely. Not in this room. Not in this house. Not in this family. Somewhere beneath the floorboards of our life, I hear a soft thud and look toward the hall. Mark has slid down the wall to the floor, knees pulled up, shoulders shaking in small, broken waves. No sound comes out, not even a breath, just that quiet, terrible collapse of a man who has run out of explanations. I walk toward him, my legs feel hollow, as if they're not mine, as if the world has rearranged itself and my body hasn't caught up yet. Mark, I whisper. He doesn't look at me. He stares ahead at the open door. The empty room, the stripped bed, the suitcase by the window. He's gone. Mark finally manages, voice so thin it could unravel midair. I kneel beside him. No, I say softly, though the word feels uncertain in my mouth. He's something, but he's not gone. Mark shakes his head, eyes red, jaw trembling. This wasn't our son, he whispers. Not the boy upstairs. Not the boy down there. Not the boy we held at night. Not the boy we raised. He closes his eyes. This was someone else. The words hit me like a cold wind. Someone else. Someone who left clues like breadcrumbs, chalk, messages, old drawings, new handwriting, keys, dangling from vents, memories planted in the basement, silence. Where love should have lived. The question rises slowly, painfully, forming itself like frost on glass. Who has been living here all these years? The walls feel suddenly unfamiliar, the air colder, the house both ours and not ours at all. I look back into the empty room, the stripped bed, the waiting suitcase, the two drawings side by side, the boy we lost and the man we created bound together in crayon and ink, and for the first time since the basement door opened, I feel something shift inside me, not fear, not anger, recognition. Someone left this room for us to find, someone who wanted us to see, and he is not finished. The first light of dawn barely touches the street, a thin gray ribbon stretching between the houses, like something half alive, half asleep. I stand in the doorway with Mark beside me, both of us wrapped in the kind of silence that has weight. The air is cold enough to sting, yet I don't move. I feel rooted to the threshold, as if stepping forward or backward might change the shape of the world forever. The curb, a car idles, dark windows, engine humming low, steady. It feels wrong for the hour, wrong for our street, wrong for the boy who steps out of our house without looking like he belongs to it. Ethan, or the man wearing his face, lifts the suitcase as if it weighs nothing at all. He doesn't look at us immediately. Instead, he pauses on the porch steps, taking in the yard, the cracked walkway, the house that raised him, the house that lied for him, the house he lied to. Then he turns his head. Those eyes, familiar in shape, unfamiliar in everything else, study us like he's memorizing a final scene. He raises a hand, not quite a wave, not quite a goodbye, just recognition, as though he understands something we still don't. Behind us, the basement door hangs open, breathing out cold air that curls around our ankles, damp, earthy, smelling of soil that hasn't seen light in decades. It smells like something newly dug up, something that should have stayed underground. The wind lifts a strand of my hair, brushing it across my cheek like a whisper. Mark shifts beside me, shoulders trembling. His voice comes out cracked, softer than a prayer. We buried the wrong child. The words fall between us, heavy and final, making the morning feel even colder. I don't look at him. I don't have to. I can feel the truth in the way the air moves, in the emptiness of Ethan's room, in the silence that has followed him like a shadow since the night he locked us in the basement. The car door opens. He climbs inside without another glance. The door shuts with a dull, certain sound like earth hitting a coffin lid. The engine revs, steady as a heartbeat, and the car pulls away from the curb. The street swallows it whole, leaving only tire tracks that glisten faintly in the wet morning light. Mark wipes at his eyes, but no sound comes from him. Grief sits differently on a man who has lost the same child twice. I step forward, out onto the porch, feeling my legs carry me even though they don't feel like my own. The cold boards creak beneath my feet, that same weary sound they've made for 20 years, but today it feels like goodbye. The sun pushes a little higher, soft and reluctant. I watch the empty street long after the car disappears, long after the air settles, long after the truth has carved itself into my bones. Behind me, Mark whispers, "What do we do now?" And I know without turning, without thinking, without breathing, we do nothing. We tell no one. This includes neither the sheriff nor the neighbors. The neighbors are not. It is not the world that asks questions we cannot answer. Some doors once opened, never close again, and some stories the kind buried under soil, under fear, or under love twisted into something unrecognizable are not meant to be spoken aloud. I step back into the house. Mark follows. The basement door creaks quietly as it swings inward, and the cold breath from below curls against my skin like a warning. The house feels different now. Lighter in some places, heavier in others. The wrong child lies somewhere in our past. And the right one, the one who walked away this morning, leaves us with truths we can never unlearn. The door closes behind us, and the silence that settles over the house feels like the end of something we should never have begun.